It's me, Mark Doty, and I'm here at the awesome Thomann Synth Reactor. And one of the ways I'm going to be celebrating this is by demonstrating the Moog Grandmother, a synthesizer that I should have gotten to long before now, because it is exactly the sort of thing that I beg for from synthesizer manufacturers, an actual analog synthesizer that's completely analog and in every single way, including modulation, envelope, everything is analog. In fact, and you've probably heard this, but it's really interesting to me as a Moog historian that this is essentially a surface mount version of the Synthesizer 15, often known as the System 15, called the Model 15 on itself. So, just to make it easy, there's about 8 different names. But yes, the Synthesizer 15, this is taken from that. The direct designs are taken from that. So you're actually essentially playing the Synthesizer 15 with this. So obviously it's going to have a fantastic vintage tone, and it does. You'll see. So I'm going to dive right in because I don't have my typical amount of time. So let's start with the oscillators. I've got one oscillator going. This is oscillator 1. I'm going to talk about the octaves, but it's kind of weird because you can actually shift the octaves with the keyboard as well as in the oscillators themselves. So this is not necessarily a representation. We can go all the way down to the clicks with the keyboard shifting, but obviously, this isn't a hugely wide keyboard, and you can shift just by holding down the shift button and pressing up. We can get higher and higher. I guess that's the top. But it's, let's see if that got me back to where I was. It has, of course, the wide range you would expect from a Moog oscillator. And currently, we are listening to the Sawtooth, which is the one I always start out with. But it has that character that you expect from an analog synthesizer. It's not just, your perfect, pristine saw. It's a juicy, warm saw. Let's listen to the other sounds. Triangle wave. Actually, let me put that down a little bit. Up a little bit. I accidentally pressed the play. We don't want that. Of course, you have that really low, deep, rich triangle. Let's listen to the square. Fantastic sounding square, and we have the pulse. Of course, the pulse is where you get the pulse width modulation, which we have to bring in through the modulation section. So I'm going to stray into the modulation section for a second. To get the modulation section going, we're going to have to bring up the mod wheel over here. So that we can actually get the effect from the modulation section. It's kind of the structure of old Moog things, was to sort of orient modulation as controlled directly by the modulation wheel. So we have a pulse width amount knob over here. So if we're set to the pulse setting, we can get this pulse width modulation out of the modulation section. And if you turn the pulse width up, you can get even to the point where you're getting like a 0% duty cycle or 100%, I'm not sure which. Substantial. But if you hang around down in the lower level, of course, you'll be able to just get a smooth, non-duty cycle of 100 or 0, which results in silence. Okay, so the second oscillator is much the same. Let's listen to it. We still have the pulse width modulation going. Of course, with the second oscillator, you have frequency control. So it's up a perfect fifth. And down a perfect fifth. Okay. So then, of course, you can do, you can have your second oscillator set to an interval if you'd like. Which is such a traditional Moog sound. But being able to shift the frequency is also awesome because of sync. And this is a really great sync arrangement that Moog has come up with here. You don't have to wonder about which oscillator is being synced to which, because obviously if you have frequency control on the second oscillator, it's the one being synced. So all you have to do is press the sync button and immediately you get traditional sync sounds. Which are very nice, and we can actually modulate those, and I'll talk about that when we get to more into the modulation section. Okay, so your mixer section, the most complex part of the Moog Grandmother. I'm just kidding, of course. You control the volume of oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. And of course, this is where we can bring in noise. The noise is very nice, very useful. Of course, we have the one thing to mention that we will get to is the fact that noise in, it's kind of a strange label, but what it actually just means is audio in, and you can use the third mixer as whatever you want, whatever you put in, then you can control it. It cancels the noise, and whatever you put into it becomes what is controlled by this knob. That's probably the weirdest way to phrase that. I don't know what's going on. Okay, the utility section we're going to pass because it's all about modular. So we'll get back to that and move right on to everyone's favorite, the filter. So I'm just going to do a few cutoff sweeps to give you a sense of this deliciously amazing Moog filter. And, you know, impartially. And with this, I'm happy to be able to do a very, very slow filter sweep because this is all analog. You're not going to get any stepping of any sort. It's just gorgeous actual analog, which is really the natural habitat of the 24 decibel per octave Moog filter. And you can tell, it is so smooth and so gorgeous. I could sit and do that over and over again, and I'm tempted to, but I'm not going to. Okay, next let's add about 25% resonance. Already there's a saturation, a distortion in the sound that is so gorgeous. Let's go up a little bit. I love it. Okay. And what's really nice about this filter, when you go into self-oscillation, you're not going to hear this gigantic, screeching, awful sine wave that punches you in the face. it has kind of its own 904-ish character of self-oscillation that's actually super pleasing. It's distorted and messy like you need from an analog synthesizer. So it's pure 904. I mean, it's actually, if you know what I'm saying by 904, that's the Moog module, that is the filter module. And it's such a beautiful sound. It's what gave rise to everyone wanting to do a 24 decibel per octave ladder filter on everything. It all comes from here. So this is, not a modern slick ladder filter that you'll find elsewhere. This is the filter. The Moog sound came directly from this.